Welcome to another reaction stream ahead of Game Week 8, and we do have confirmation that 7 games are going ahead, with 3 being postponed. I'm going to talk about the impact of those postponements in terms of our maybe team selection, our transfer tips, and also in terms of the wildcard draft. I'm going to show you a wildcard draft that I've kind of come up with very quickly, but I'm also going to be doing a video dedicated to it later on this week. And for those of you that play UCL Fantasy, I've got all the content up for that already, and there's going to be the deadline stream tomorrow. So I hope to see you on there. And thank you very much to everyone who's helped us reach 14,000 subscribers. I think we got around 2,000 the last week or so. So thank you very much, and let's keep on pushing. And let's get straight into your questions as we always do on here. Welcome, Mohammed. Yes, I will be showing you a wildcard team. Welcome, Jeff. -6 players and 1 free transfer. What to do? Not panic is definitely the key thing. It depends on which players you're missing out. I'm guessing there's going to be some Liverpool and Chelsea players in there, but ultimately I think selling the likes of Salah and Trent is very viable this week, especially with the lack of form they have. Welcome, Akash. Time to use free hit. I've got 5 players from Liverpool, Chelsea, Brighton. I disagree. I would try not to use the free hit right now, because there could be a period around game weeks 29 and 34 where there could be just a number of double game weeks as well as a blank game week, and it's very difficult to navigate that period without a free hit. So I would try not to do that. If it's only 5 players, I think you're fine, and you can maybe take a hit or make a few free transfers and you should be fine. Tony or Jesus, I have to say Tony. Maybe not for game week 8 when they face each other, but in the long term I think Tony is the better option. So rather than booking in that transfer, I just go for Tony. Free hit, I have 5 players not playing. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why, and everyone's team situation is different, but I would try to avoid using the free hit if possible. What did I just watch? Better cancel all the games. Look, I want all the games to go ahead, but obviously we've got to be realistic, and yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think you'd rather have all the games go ahead rather than some not going ahead. I mean, Arsenal, for example, in Europa League, their game is going to be called off against PSV. So yeah, there you go. Rest in peace, FPL. Well, you could say welcome back in a way. I've also got 3 players not playing. That's not too bad. If we look at my team here, you know, it's not too bad. I've got James and Salah missing from my starting 11, and then everyone else on my bench is obviously blanking. And I'm going to show you what I'm looking to do if I decide not to play the wildcard this week. So I could bring in Pope for Sanchez because I really don't want Ward when he's playing Tottenham, and Pope is a long-term transfer. The problem with taking a hit for a goalkeeper is, you know, I don't like that in general. There's kind of, you need a really big return from a goalkeeper, and 9 times out of 10 it won't happen. And I might wildcard very soon anyway, so maybe I could just play the wildcard regardless. But this -4 looks pretty good. I can get De Bruyne in for Salah and also Perisic for Trent, and the team will look pretty solid, even with the blanks from the likes of Cucurella and James. But I am considering using the wild card because I'm probably going to use it anyway, so to kind of prevent that -4 hit, get these players in that I want, and also get rid of the deadwood like Cucurella as one example. So yeah, just kind of an insight into what I'm thinking about. I could be playing the wild card, and I'll be talking about this in the team selection video. What do you think of Paqueta on a free hit? I think he's a decent shout, and he looked pretty good in the Conference League, but Bowen is my favourite West Ham asset, to be fair. And even then, he hasn't been the best. Welcome, Chu. Good to see you on here. I have 5 out, so wildcard is going to be used. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think a wildcard, I'd rather use a wildcard than a free hit at this point. Who should we bring in, Son or KDB? It has to be KDB. Son, look, I think he will start to deliver. When is the big question, but I think De Bruyne is the better pick, especially over the next few game weeks. So I'd go for De Bruyne personally. Let's see what else we have. So welcome, George. Good to see you. Yeah, Kane is another one, Jeff, but then you've also got Tony, Mitrovic, and Haaland. So I don't think you need Kane that much, but he is a really good shout as well. No, so Brentford versus Arsenal is taking place in London. That isn't postponed, but Chelsea is. Obviously, that's a London game. Then we have the Man United Leeds game. That's also being called off. And then Brighton versus Palace, which was called off anyway. So those are the 3 games that are being called off, just for those of you that are new and maybe aren't aware. So we did get the news today. So 7 games are going ahead, and these 3 aren't. Brighton versus Palace, which was already the case before everything that happened in the last few days. Man United versus Leeds, and Chelsea versus Liverpool. But the rest of the games will be going ahead. So yeah, that is the latest that we have. So glad not all London games are cancelled. Yeah, really like the Game Week 12 wildcard, but if Arsenal-Chelsea was cancelled, would have forced my hand. Yeah, look, I think a Game Week 12 wildcard also looks pretty good, and I am considering it, especially if I decide to take the -4, get Nick Pope in as well, and I think it would be worth it in the end to maybe save and hold off the wildcard for a little bit longer. But if I'm going to play the wildcard in Game Week 9 or 10, then I don't think there's much point of me taking a -4 hit involving a goalkeeper, but I do like that idea as well, Harry. I've made one transfer and just realised 4 players will not be playing. Can I still play the wildcard this week? Well, of course you can, and it also kind of eliminates any hits you've taken, so you won't lose anything in that front. So that's another good way of doing it. The same goes for the free hit. Oh, thank you, Singh. I'm doing much better now. Should be all good for tomorrow, hopefully. So yeah, it's been better in the last few days, been gradually improving, but I appreciate you checking in. Thank you, Karaki, for the kind words, and yeah, the last week or so has been mental. I didn't expect to reach 14,000 so quickly, but yeah, let's keep on going. Welcome, James. We'll talk about UCL Fantasy tomorrow. Yeah, the reason why I'm seeing a lot of people with problems with the captaincy is because of the app. I think the app is, I don't know what they've done with it, but there's so many issues. I can't even log into the app, so imagine that. I would just use the browser, whether it's on your phone or on another device. I always use it pretty much because I'm doing the videos on my laptop, so I would recommend using just the browser, whether it's on your laptop, your tablet, or on your phone. I think that should solve your issue and there shouldn't be any problems. Otherwise, I think a few other kind of quick fixes is to make substitutions and then kind of like substitute that player back in to then captain him. I think that's worked for a lot of people as well. So yeah, let's go back to, you know what? Let me show you the wildcard draft that I'm kind of assembled here. Just bear in mind that we do have Rashford in here, and of course he's not going to play, but you could easily bench him here. And I wouldn't be able to afford this. I think I'm 0.3 million short, but that won't be the case for all of you. Let me just sort this out pretty quickly. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, there we go. That should be fine. So yeah, just kind of talking through it very quickly. Nick Pope, for me, is the best goalkeeper to own right now, especially with Sanchez blanking in Game Week 8. You've got Ward as the second goalkeeper, don't overcomplicate it. Perisic, James, Nico Williams, Cancelo and Trippier makes up a pretty good backline. You also take a bit of money out of the defence and you get rid of the most expensive player, at least amongst defenders, who isn't delivering in Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has really poor fixtures and he blanks in Game Week 8. So this draft includes no Liverpool players, and I talked about this heading into Game Week 6 and 7. So, yeah, I think if I were to wildcard this week, I'd probably go for something like this. De Bruyne would be my like-for-like replacement for Mohamed Salah. You could go for Sterling, maybe, as a bit of a cheeky punt, or Bruno Fernandes, but it doesn't really make sense when both of them obviously blanking this week. And De Bruyne, anyways, is worth the extra millions for me. Then you've got Martinelli, Bowen, Rashford, and Andreas. I'm actually quite happy with this, but Zaha is still my favourite mid-priced midfielder, even over Bowen, Rashford, and Martinelli, arguably. And he's someone you can look to bring in the weeks to come, or you could just get him in directly for Bowen, but then you would have a bit of a headache, and I think you wouldn't have a full 11 worth of players. But the front three, they all are going to have games this week, and it's all looking pretty good. Mitrovic could be a fantastic differential captaincy against Nottingham Forest. So the way this team would be played in Game Week 8, with all the suspensions in mind, Nick Pope would be in goal. You'd play, I think, a back three of Trippier, Cancelo and Perisic. You'd also go for Martinelli, De Bruyne and Bowen, and probably Andres Pereira. I'd probably go for something like that. And then the front three. So a 3-4-3. You could go for Nico Williams of Andreas. It's up to you, but I think I'd go for Andreas. Let me know what you think of this team. Haaland will be the captain. Mitrovic vice. So yeah, I think it looks pretty solid. We'll talk about this later on as well. In the next few days, I'll try to do a dedicated wildcard team video. There may be a few changes there as well. On wildcard, Isaac or Tony? It has to be Tony for me still. I'm playing Reed and taking a -4 to have 11 players in my starting 11. I think that's fair enough. I'm not sure which players are bringing out and in Kunal, but that looks pretty good to me. Welcome LFC RY. I activated the wildcard last week early. On now, I'm just tweaking the team, but not entirely sure what's going on with the fixtures. So there are 7 games going ahead. 3 of them aren't, including your team, Liverpool. That game against Chelsea is postponed. Brighton versus Palace is still off. That's not going to happen. And the other game is Man United versus Leeds. But the rest will be going ahead, and it's still possible to kind of navigate through that. So if you look at the team on screen, this could also help you with some ideas. Welcome, Christian. I'm playing a wildcard this week, looking to get Trent out for Trippier and McAllister for Gordon. I do like the first transfer a lot. Not too certain about the second one, but Gordon has actually been pretty impressive, to be fair, and I think he's up there in terms of shots taken by any player in the game, which was very surprising to me. We'll probably keep Zaha and keep Rashford, even though they won't play. Yeah, I think that's understandable because they're two players you really want to have in the long term anyway. I like Nick Pope, but double Newcastle defence doesn't fill me with confidence. I mean, if you look at the underlying stats, Newcastle actually haven't been that great, and there is a degree of overperformance. So I'm kind of in agreement with you there, but I still think they offer great value with the fixtures. And Nick Pope and Trippier are really good for bonus points as well. Dylan, what are your thoughts? Jeff, I'll check that out. Thank you. Have 5 players. Do you suggest wildcard? I mean, 5 players isn't that bad, to be fair. You know, for example, I've got 6 players out if you count my bench, and it's not the worst thing in the world. But to be honest, I think there's nothing wrong with wildcarding now, because I'd probably look to wildcard between now and Game Week 12, probably. Any later than that, and I think you're minimizing the effects of the wildcard, because it also is a really powerful chip in the weeks to come. So I would recommend possibly wildcarding within the next few weeks, and if you are maybe looking to make even more changes, then I'd play the wildcard. Rashford replacements, I mean, I would still keep him, to be honest, but if you are looking for a replacement, then it gets a bit tricky. I think Martinelli is the kind of easy one, you know, the one that doesn't really require too much thought. Another one I like is Harvey Barnes, but he is facing Tottenham this week, so it just really depends on, you know, what your team situation is, which players you already have, because I would be aiming for, you know, the likes of Bowen, Zaha, who blanks this week as well. Spurs triple. I do like it for this week, but in the long term, I think a double is fine. So Perisic and Kane will be my favourite. If Heung-min Son can get some form, then of course he looks really good. But Perisic is my favourite Tottenham asset right now. And I don't think Kane is that necessary, despite him being arguably the 2nd or 3rd best captaincy option and premium this season, because you've already got Haaland and he's going to be your captain most of the time. Emerson, good 4 million defender. I think so. I definitely think so. Will he be nailed on the long term? I'm not too sure. But for the time being, I think he's a decent option. Welcome, everything's in. It's all good. What about you? I have 6 players from the game's cancelled. What should I do? I would either maybe use your free transfers, possibly take a hit to get your full 11 or wildcard. I wouldn't be using the free hit this week. Son for Salah, Bernardo for Zaha, and playing wildcard in Game Week 9. To be fair, that looks pretty good, but I do prefer De Bruyne instead of Son. And instead of Bernardo, I mean, I probably would look elsewhere, but he's not the worst pick in the world, to be fair. Well, for example, the London game, you know, between Brentford and Arsenal isn't called off because the capacity is only 17,000. So there's not a big need for the police to be there, or as much police, should I say. So it's also a question of security, policing, you know, the resources and all of that good stuff. So yeah, that's the reason why that game isn't postponed. As for Spurs-Leicester, I'm guessing they're kind of just thinking of it as, well, it's not really a rivalry between those two, and it should be quite calm. United versus Leeds is a really fierce rivalry. They need a lot of police for that game. That's why it's postponed. Chelsea versus Liverpool is a really big game, and it's in London, and therefore that game is going to be called off. So it's also to do with the traffic and all of that stuff that also plays a part in this, but yeah, it is a bit of a shame. If I do a wildcard, we suggest holding players such as Gross and James. James, yes. Gross, not so much, because I'm actually less keen on Brighton assets right now. If I were to wildcard, I probably wouldn't go for any Brighton asset, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, he's a cheap option, and, you know, around, when you look at midfielders at his price and below, he's still one of the best, but I'd be a bit concerned about these assets in the long term. But James, definitely. The fixtures are there, and Chelsea could have a really big managerial bounce with Graham Potter. Yeah, Christian, I like the midfield, apart from maybe McAllister. A lot of his returns have come from penalties, and especially with the managerial change, we don't know what's going to happen with Brian. They're blanking in Game Week 8. I probably wouldn't go for him, and I wouldn't go for a double Arsenal midfield. I think Martinelli's fine. Zaha, Rashford looks really good. I wouldn't go for Odegaard, though. And yeah, KDB looks really good. I'm not going to have any problems with that. Yeah, I think it is worth wildcarding now, Payne. Obviously, we'll give it more thoughts in the next few days, and we'll talk more about it in detail, but I think it is a good time to wildcard, and I'm looking at it myself. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Instead of cancelling London games, A-category games involving a lot of police assistance have been cancelled. Exactly. That's pretty much the way they've gone about it. Even Arsenal versus PSV, because of the amount of Dutch fans that will be coming abroad, you know, into London, and the problems that could also cause with policing, that's why that game has been postponed as well. James or Chilwell or Perisic? I'd go for James, then Perisic, and then Chilwell. Salah to KDB and Planche to Mitrovic, I would do it, Sing, without any hesitation. Perisic or Emerson Royal, I'd definitely go for Perisic, although he is less nailed. I think he is worth the extra millions. I'm not so sure about Bowen this season. I completely agree, to be honest. It's just really kind of a wild card pick with the fixtures in mind. And if it wasn't for the blank, I would just go for Zaha, and he's cheaper, and it's going to be more affordable for most people. But I am in agreement. Bowen did look decent in the Europa Conference League. He took a penalty, and it was an emphatic one as well. But yeah, he's not the greatest pick. Mitrovic or Isaac or Kane? Mitrovic. I just think in terms of structure, he'd be my favourite, and he's so consistent. I'd go for Mitrovic. I can afford that wildcard, Dylan. Should I go for it? Yes, I mean, possibly. I probably would. It just depends on which transfers you would make or how many hits you would take if you weren't wildcarding this week and you wanted to have a full 11 for Game Week 8. I got 3 from Man City, Spurs, and Arsenal, and 2 from Newcastle, says Rokugu. That looks really good, to be fair. In terms of Spurs and Arsenal assets, I just want to have 2 now and maybe start to trim down these assets, especially Arsenal, who have a really bad fixture swing in Game Week 9. Newcastle, that looks good. You could even have a triple up, arguably. I think a double up looks good. Recommendation for a midfield of a budget of 6.4 million. You're going to be really limited there, and most of the players I do like around that price will be from Brighton and Leeds, and obviously their games are postponed, so it's a bit of a difficult one. I think Martinelli is 6.5, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Let me have a look for you, but I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of most of these assets that you can see. So 6.4 and below. Yeah, this looks pretty grim, to be fair. Jensen would still be okay. Andres Pereira is kind of my favourite budget midfielder, but yeah, we don't have too many options here. You could consider someone like Almiron or Damari Gray, but that's really, really stretching it, and I honestly wouldn't recommend it. So yeah, maybe Jensen would be my pick, but not really feeling it from the players that obviously have a Game Week 8 fixture. Saka or Odegaard, I'd still go for Saka, to be fair. And he has actually been getting some returns quietly in the last few games. Do you suggest I keep players? Oh yeah, sorry, Matthew, I already answered that. Yeah, hopefully you got that. Thoughts on Sterling on the wildcard, mate? I would rather go for Kevin De Bruyne, and also Sterling blanks this week, and I want to see how Chelsea play under their new manager. So yeah, not for me. I probably wouldn't go for Sterling yet. I would just watch from afar first. Welcome, Sophia. I'm doing well. What about you? Thank you for asking. Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much. Best Trent replacement. You kind of just said the names that I would have said to you as well. Perisic for me would be number 1 on the list, assuming you already have James, Cancelo, and those. I like the idea of a second City defender like Diaz. That does look pretty promising. Perisic would be my pick. Odegaard has more points than Martinelli as the captain, which guarantees minutes. Yeah, that is true, but I still wouldn't go for Odegaard over Martinelli. I think in the long run, Martinelli will get more returns, and Odegaard can have a great game and not really impact it in terms of goals and assists. But of course, he's done really well so far this season, but I just wouldn't bring myself to go for Odegaard over Martinelli. Thoughts on Sterling on wildcard? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I probably wouldn't go there. I mean, it's a good option, and he has featured in my last few wildcard videos, but with the option to go for De Bruyne now, I think it's a very easy switch. You can always bring Sterling in a few weeks' time, but right now I'd go for De Bruyne. This is such a mess. Why cancel the games? It's all to do with the funeral arrangements, the policing, just the way they're going to distribute resources and police across all the games. So yeah, that's just the way they've gone about it, and it is what it is. Yeah, Diego Costa, 5.5 million for Wolves. I mean, that's a really enticing price, isn't it? Obviously, he was incredible for Chelsea. One to keep an eye on, but I hate to say I don't want to be a party pooper. Wolves have scored 2 goals this season. I mean, I just can't bring myself, even if it's 5.5, to go for Diego Costa. I know how good he has been in the past, but it's a wait and see for me. And also, Wolves have some terrible fixtures, I think, for the next few. Kane or Haaland for Game Week 8? Still, I mean, to be fair, Leicester are really bad. Probably much worse than Wolves even. For Game Week 8, I'd say Kane. He has an incredible record against Leicester as well. Thank you, Amir, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Salah to Son, Archer to Isaac, Mitrovic and Trent to Diaz, -4 worth it. Yes, I mean, I can't argue with that. Archer to Mitrovic I would do instead of Isaac. That would be my preference. But Isaac isn't a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination. Son is a really good pick, especially against Leicester. I think that's where he could finally get his goals. However, having said that, I would still rather go for De Bruyne if you can afford it. And as for Trent to Diaz or maybe Perisic, that is the way to go, I think, Amir. Yeah, only 0.2 million in the bank. That's fair enough. You could also go for Perisic instead of Diaz, maybe. And also, I mean, yeah, you can't afford De Bruyne, can you, instead of Son? In that case, that looks really good to me. If you can afford it, though, then I would go for De Bruyne instead of Son and Perisic instead of Diaz. Let me know how the funds would work for you. I'm not too sure there. Salah to Maddison and Derevosclu to Kane for a -8. I mean, look, it looks really good to me. A -8 does seem a bit too much, especially Maddison. As much as I like him, I don't know if now is the best time to go for him. But yeah, Kane is a really good move. I would actually rather go to De Bruyne. Salah to De Bruyne for a -4. That would be my preference there. Good replacement for McAllister for a -4. Very tricky around that price. You know, you could look at Odegaard, Martinelli, but if it's not someone like that, I probably would just avoid it and go for someone else. Maybe get rid of Trent or Salah instead for a -4. I feel like keeping Edison as my third City asset rather than bringing KDB on a wild card. Look, it's not a bad idea, but I wouldn't do that. I think Edison's ceiling is too low for a 5.5 million goalkeeper. Things could change, of course. City tend to have this really good run where they keep so many clean sheets and Edison will always get you 6 points, but I think that's far too much money. You could go for Pope for 0.4 million less, and he has a high ceiling. He's already got 2 double-digit returns this season, and De Bruyne is arguably the second best captaincy option right now behind Haaland, so I can understand why you're going to do something like that, but I would still go for De Bruyne and just get rid of Edison, to be honest. I don't think it's worth it. Only Mitrovic for the long term. For me, it's Mitrovic. I think they're both really good options, but if you look at the fixtures as well, I believe, I need to kind of, let's say, do a little recap there, but I think Mitrovic has the better fixtures, and also I think he'll score more goals in general. I want to keep Jesus. Fair enough. I would recommend getting rid of Jesus for probably both of them, you know, and have those two and Haaland, and you're sorted. But if you're not feeling it, that's fair enough. Is Brighton versus Palace off? Yes, it's completely off. There are 3 games that are off. That's one of them. Chelsea, Liverpool's off, and also United versus Leeds. Those are the 3 games that are off. Ward for Iverson in a wildcard for 0.1 million, yes, but at the moment Ward continues to start, and it's just like that's really the reason why you have him. A 4 million goalkeeper that starts, but obviously if you need the 0.1 million, that's a good idea as well. Best 9 million mid. I mean, I'd probably look at someone at a lower price, and Zaha for me is my favourite. It's just a shame he blanks this week. Luis Diaz or Sterling? I would recommend Sterling out of those two. Right now, anyway. Time to sell Arnold? I think so. And the same goes for Salah. I talked about this even in the last few weeks, and with the blank as well, that's the final nail in the coffin. Welcome Way saying, good to be back in the stream again due to a lot of adverse circumstances. I don't even know what to do for my team. I think we're all in a similar boat. Yeah, so Salah, Trent, Perisic, Kane. I mean, I think Perisic and Kane are fine to keep for now, but Salah and Trent are probably worthwhile sales at the moment. And you can always bring them back in a few weeks, especially when the fixtures calm down. Would you swap Foden instead of Rashford if you have the funds and got Bowen Diaz? I would rather keep Rashford instead of Foden, to be honest, but you can always have him as a 1-week punt, then always get Rashford back in. What's your transfer plan? So what you see on screen is a wildcard draft, which I could go to, but I am 0.3 million short in my case, so I would have to maybe make a compromise somewhere, and I'd have to think about that. Because I'm not too sure what I would change. Bowen to Zaha looks pretty, easy, and Zaha is my preference, but Zaha does blank in Game Week 8, so I would be down to 10 if I were to go for something like this. So that is the dilemma. If not, if I don't wildcard, I would just make 3 transfers potentially. Nick Pope in for Sanchez, Perisic in for Trent, and also De Bruyne in for Salah for a -4 hit. So that is what I'm looking to do. I'm going to put a quick poll out, see what you guys think as well, but I'm going to be thinking about it across the whole week, and obviously we'll discuss this more probably in the next few days. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday, the team selection video will be out. Remember, we do have a UCL Fantasy deadline stream tomorrow around 3:30 UK time all the way to 6 PM. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and it will be great to see so many of you. We broke the records last time. I mean, it's just an incredible amount of people in that stream, and it's quite difficult to kind of catch up, especially because I just had no voice at that time. Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to answer it before putting the poll out. So thank you, Amir. I already have Perisic and Trippier, so I could go Salah to KDB, Archer to Isaac Mitro, and a 5.6 defender. That's fair enough. I think I would do that personally. Look, Son is a really good option as well, and if you do back him, then just go for it, because Leicester is a great fixture right now. But De Bruyne is my preference if you are asking me. And Archer to Isaac Mitro, both really good choices, but Mitrovic for me will score more goals and get more points. And he has some good fixtures as well to boot. 5.6 million defender, it does get a bit tricky there. because really I would recommend the likes of James, Cancelo, Perisic, Diaz, Trippier, etc. But if you go for De Bruyne, then it looks like you can't afford Diaz, which is a bit of a shame. So in that case, I would consider... This is really tough, I can't lie, because most of the key options you pretty much already have. 5.6 million defender. I think there is someone probably escaping. I need to think about that, yeah. But once you sort out that 5.6 million defender, you're all good to go, to be fair. Maybe instead of Diaz, you could look a bit left field. I mean, Walker's it's too risky for me. As much as I'd like to say that, I'm not too sure if I would bring myself to recommend. Double Spurs, not double Spurs, double Newcastle defense, not really. I wouldn't go there. Maybe Diego Dallo. I think Diego Dallo would be the way to go, but then he is blanking this week. So, yeah, it's kind of a tricky situation you're in, especially with all these blanks. If not, I think what you said originally was fine, but I do prefer De Bruyne over Son if you can help it. Rashford on wildcard with a blank? Yes. So, like I said earlier, so you can easily play a 3-4-3, and you would have Nico Williams on the bench, and then 2 blank players, so to speak. So Pope would be in goal, Perisic, James... sorry, not Perisic, James. Perisic, Cancelo, Trippier, that's your back 3. Martinelli, De Bruyne, Bowen, and Andreas Pereira, and then the front 3. And I think you're fine. And Rashford is someone you want to have in the weeks to come as well. So, yeah, I think Rashford on a wildcard is fine, even with the blank in mind. Obviously, it's a shame because Leeds is a really good fixture for Rashford, on paper anyway. Foden, Bowen, or Maddison? Right now, I would say Bowen, but if you are kind of basing it off the season and also what happened in the tail end of the last campaign, I think Maddison is my favourite, to be fair. But Leicester are awful, so right now, I think I would just go for Bowen with the fixtures in mind, and he's on penalties. Should I get rid of Salah? I think it's a good time to get rid of him. You know, really poor fixtures, he's blanking in Gameweek 8 anyway. You're not going to captain him, he's 13 million, 12.9. I think it's a good time to get rid. Thank you, Never Give Up. So yeah, we've got over 200 people watching, and I appreciate all of that. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. I think we can do that. And remember to tune in for the deadline stream tomorrow for UCL Fantasy. And what you can see on screen is a wildcard draft, and we'll talk more about this in future videos as well. There'll be the transfer tips, and as well as the team selection video where I'll discuss my own plans, because I could be wildcarding in Game Week 8. It's a definite possibility. McAllister to Bailey for a -4. For a -4, I wouldn't do that. Who to take out, Trent or Gross for a -4? I'd rather get rid of Trent, I think, for a -4, to be fair. Thank you, Singh. I appreciate the shout out. Thank you. Aren't you concerned about Perisic, Mins? It's always going to be a risk, but when he does start, he's going to get points. It's as simple as that. And I think he will start against Leicester. Obviously, let's wait and see what Paul O'Keefe says and all the predicted lineups, but I probably would do that. Are you getting rid of Chelsea defence? I mean, look, I said it even before Game Week 1 to not double up on Chelsea defence. I should have gone for Cucurella. The reason why I did over Perisic is because of fixtures, really, and it did backfire. I think James is fine still, and I think there will be a reaction with Graham Potter, but Cucurella, I can afford to keep for another week. It becomes a bit more tricky if, for example, I get rid of Cucurella instead of Trent, because I don't think I'd be able to afford what you can see on screen. So let me just show you my -4 hit if I were to go for something like this. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to afford this. I'd be a few million short, unfortunately, if I got rid of Alexander-Arnold instead of Cucurella. Yeah, I'd be 0.3 million short, unfortunately. So there you go. That's why Cucurella will still live to fight another day. But ultimately, he is someone I'm looking to get rid of on the wild card with pleasure. You know, he's been absolutely awful for me. 12 points this season. I mean, that's absolutely woeful. 8 million midfielder, Bowen. I think Bowen, Zaha, and you're also looking at Maddison, but I probably would go for Bowen with everything in mind. What about Kulusevski? Think he plays? This is the big problem with Kulusevski. He probably deserves to start the games, but it's him that's making way for Richarlison. Son continues to start. So I'm not too sure if he starts, to be honest. What could happen is Richarlison plays in the Champions League and then Kulusevski plays in the Premier League. That is a possibility, but I just wouldn't want to risk Kulusevski right now. Thank you, LFC RY. Thank you very much. -12 free hit or play 8 players. A -12 is way too much, I think. Especially this week might have a really low ceiling with all the blanks. Free hit or play 8 players. Wildcard. If you can, I would wildcard. I'm not sure if that's a possibility for you. If it is, I'd wildcard. Kane loves the Leicester fixture. He does, but I wouldn't look to take a -4 or -8 to get him in. But on a wildcard, he's a good option, of course. He always is. Is triple into defense too risky? I have Dumfries, Gossens, Onana on my limitless draft. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, but I think it is risky. Because Pilsen still could score. They did at the Camp Nou. I wouldn't be too surprised if they scored a goal. I think 1 is enough. I don't think I'd risk it with 2, let alone 3. But it's completely up to you. If you're confident of a clean sheet, then go for it. What about Ollie Watkins as a punt? Not feeling it. You know, I would rather have Isaac, and then on top of that, you have Haaland, Kane himself, and then Mitrovic and Tony. I think there's no space for him. 7 players not starting, 600k in the world is okay, but worth wildcarding now. I think it is worth wildcarding now, to be honest. 7 players not starting, that means you've got 8 players available, so 3 kind of vacancies in your starting 11. You could maybe take a hit or use free transfers, but honestly, I think a wildcard's also fine. Selling Arnold for Diaz or Gross for Bowen? Oof. I would be tempted to say Gross to Bowen, but it's a really, really tricky one. Yeah, I can see why asking it. It's a 50-50 decision. I think Gross to Bowen has the highest ceiling, but Bowen hasn't really shown enough so far this season, if we're being completely honest. I can fit 10 players. Should I wildcard? It's really hard for me to say if you should wildcard or not when I don't know, your whole squad. But I think it is a good time to wildcard, to be fair. And a lot of these Liverpool, Chelsea players that are blanking this week anyway, that you may have, you might not want on a wildcard, so you're kind of doing these moves early anyway. Son over KDB, not convinced myself. Look, it's not a bad choice. I think Son could come good, especially against Leicester, but I prefer De Bruyne. Why Bowen over Maddison? I mean, if you look at this season so far, then yeah, Maddison is clearly the better pick, but Bowen has the better fixtures, and he's also on penalties, which is really interesting. And despite how poor West Ham have been this season, they're not as bad as Leicester. I haven't used my wildcard yet. I mean, the wildcard draft, you could, kind of just refresh or go back in time and you'll see it, but this is the wildcard draft, and there will probably be some changes. I can't afford it myself, unfortunately. I'm 0.3 million short. I'll wait and see how Potter's Chelsea do in Champions League before I make any decisions concerning their players. Yeah, I wouldn't make any transfers just yet, and that includes playing the wildcard or not. Limitless match week 2 or 5 is completely up to you. I'm not sure what your team situation is. We'll talk more about this in the Champions League fantasy video tomorrow, but if your team is in kind of a bad shape right now, then just Limitless right now and you're fine. The advantage of Limitlessing in match day 5 is having more information with a few more game weeks in mind. Pope, Cancelo, Andreas, Martinelli, Haaland, Jesus, plus injury doubt Walker, then the Silver and Archer. Have 2 free transfers, but think I'll wildcard. Should I? I mean, that looks good. To be fair, it's not the worst, but yeah, I think I would look to wildcard, Marco, if, with that team situation you had in mind. I'm not sure which players you're missing out, which players you have that are blanking, but I guess you have 2 or 3 Liverpool players and probably 1 or 2 Chelsea, so that looks good. I'd probably wildcard. Walker still has a knock on FPL. What's up with him? Well, Sergio Gomez started in the last Champions League game because Walker had an injury, but Pep Guardiola said that he should be fine. I haven't seen his recent press conference. I'm not sure if he's done one in the last few days, but the last time he spoke, he was basically saying that Walker's injury isn't anything serious and that he should be back soon. Willian an option? Not right now. I think from Fulham, it's Mitrovic and Andres Pereira. Can Mbeumo deliver in my wildcard squad? I think he's not the worst option, but I'd rather go to Tony for 1.2 million more. You've also got Mitrovic at 6.8. I can't, advocate for Mbeumo over those 2, for example. Diaz or Foden? Right now, I prefer Diaz, but not really a big fan. And you also have to take in mind the fixtures. And Liverpool have some really bad fixtures. Then you also consider just the form of Liverpool in general. So Diaz has been better so far this season, and that's why I said Diaz. But when you're looking at fixtures and form overall of the team, I think Foden's the better pick, but kind of a reluctant one there. Rice on pens, well, that's the thing. The other day, Bowen took the penalty, and Rice, I think, was on the pitch. 9 players starting 2 free transfers. Should I wildcard or not? I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. With 2 free transfers, you get to 11. So it's completely up to you. You can always wildcard around game week 12 anyway, or maybe game week 10. There's no definitive answer there. But I would look to use the wildcard in the next 4 game weeks, let's say. And if you can just use 2 free transfers and you're happy with your team for this week, with all the uncertainty, that's fine. You can maybe save the wildcard for another week. But honestly, it doesn't really matter too much. If you are looking to make, let's say, 5+ changes and you think it'll really benefit your team even in game week 8, Jonah, then go ahead and wildcard. Otherwise, you can just wait another week. Need to fill the last spot on the wildcard, Bailey or Andreas? I just go for Andreas. He's cheaper. and he's maybe easier to bench in a way. But both are fine. Is there a chance for more games to be postponed in Game Week 8? Never say never, but based on the circumstances, I think this is how it will end up being. The thing is, there could be real big issues with fans, there could be policing issues that happens on the eve of the game, and in that case, you could be right, there could be another postponement, but I think, in all likelihood, we're going to get 7 games, and those 3 matches are definitely off, and that's it. Perisic or Mitrovic? Mitrovic is my preference, more nailed, and yeah, he's also just a really good choice in general. Good fixtures. Mitrovic over Toney, yes, but I think they're both really good choices. Yeah, Christian, that looks like a good wildcard squad. Like I said earlier, I would rather go for Mitrovic instead of Kane and then go for a premium midfielder, but that looks completely fine to me. You've got a good team. Also got 0.8 million in the bank. Took your advice and removed Odegaard. Yeah, that looks pretty solid. Just a few things to consider. Patterson isn't the greatest pick. I'd probably rather go for Nico Williams. If not, you could go for a more expensive defender, but I can understand why you've gone for something like this, to be fair. You don't want to have too many benching headaches. Gordon's the main guy I look at and think, I don't really like him too much, even if he's had a good start to the season. Why Toney over Isaac? Because I think he'll score more goals. He's still got some good fixtures, and he is the focal point of that Brentford attack. With Isaac, he is right now, but Callum Wilson should be back from injury within the next week or so. I'd rather go for Toney. Should I play the silver or -4? Which player would you bring in on a -4 though? I think playing the silver is fine enough. No, Game Week 8 isn't cancelled. So there are 7 games going ahead. There are 3 matches that are going to be called off, which we talked about already. Cancelo surely a sell on a wild card. I disagree. I mean, you say he's done nothing, but he's the highest scoring defender in the game, isn't he? If we can double check that. I disagree. He also got a fantasy assist in Game Week 2 against Bournemouth. And, Cancelo, fair enough, and City, they have some poor fixtures coming up. You could say Liverpool and Arsenal, but even before that, Wolves looks pretty good, Southampton, and City can do really well against anybody. And if you go without Cancelo and you have no City coverage, especially defensively, that's just a big worry. I would go for Cancelo still, so I disagree with you on there. Son or KDB? For Game Week 8, I think I'd still go for KDB, just because I've seen more from him this season compared to Heung-min Son. Trent and Gross out for a -8. For who though, Mohamed? That's the thing. I'm not sure who you're getting in, but if you're getting in Perisic and, let's say, Bowen, that looks really good, but I'm not sure if that will be the case. Welcome, Genius Gamer. I've got 8 starters. Would you do a -8 to have 11 starters? I'd rather wildcard, to be fair, than take a -8 or a -12. But look, it's not the worst thing in the world. If you're bringing in players like De Bruyne as part of a -8, it's not too bad. But I would try to minimize the hits this week because I think the ceiling won't be that high. And I could be wrong, but that's just my preference. Maddison or Rashford, Dylan? Right now, I would say Rashford, but he is obviously blanking in Game Week 8. Maddison or Bowen? Right now, I'd say Bowen, reluctantly. If Leicester can get their act together, then Maddison all day long. I think he's the better FPL asset, especially this season. But Bowen, I think, has great fixtures. He's on penalties, it looks like. Let's wait and see if that continues. And I could see West Ham, taking up a notch and also taking it to another level and showing what they are capable of. And also Bowen, he has looked better in the last few games, but it's a difficult one. Really difficult. Good 1 week punt for 6.5 million or less. You're probably looking at Odegaard or Martinelli then. I think those would be my 2 picks. I have a look here at midfielders, meeting your criteria, but yeah, it has to be probably that. Yeah, Martinelli or Odegaard, 6.5 million or under. Take your pick there. I think either of them is fine. I'd probably go for Martinelli, but Odegaard's been really good this season. In Sweden, we have order guards who can accompany or replace police during huge events. Do you have something similar in England? No, not necessarily. It's just police, and yeah, they're already underfunded as it is, to say the least. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess here. Let's say that. Forget to say, already used my wildcard. Fair enough, Redrick. Fair enough. In that case, you could just take a -4 and get to 10 starters, and that's it. Don't overdo it just to get to 11, in my opinion. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you very much. Kane plus Saint-Maximin or Son and Isaac? Honestly, I'd probably say Kane and Saint-Maximin, but not really feeling it. Not a big fan of Saint-Maximin. Should I -4 and remove McAllister or wait 1 week? And right now, I just play Reed. Don't play Weed. Yes. I just play Reed, I think. it just depends which players are going to bring in for McAllister, and if it's not someone of reasonable quality, yeah, I just play Reed. Wildcard Game Week 8, that looks pretty good, Eric. Not too sure about Ward-Prowse, though, and Saint-Maximin. Those would be two big doubts I would have, and I prefer Tony and Mitrovic over Isaac. That's what I would definitely do. But it's a good team overall, and obviously back your gut on what you're doing. I would also stretch to Perisic over Emerson Real, despite the minutes concerns. And, yeah, Sterling next game week, that's fair enough, but bringing in Sterling for Andres Pereira, I'm not too sure about that. I'd still like to have someone like Andres Pereira to sit on the bench, and he's good for the team structure. So I would probably change a few things. My preference is to go with some medium-priced forwards like Tony and Mitrovic instead of Kane, but that's fine. You know, Kane's a really good choice as well. Thank you, LFC. No worries. I appreciate it. What's your thoughts on Alba and Tuchel sacked? I mean, Chelsea have been playing poorly. You know, there's no... You know, we can't sugarcoat that, but Tuchel deserved more time from what he's done not even this season, what he's done throughout his whole Chelsea career. He still got third last season, although maybe a bit lucky to do so. He won a Champions League. He also won the World Cup. He won the Super Cup. He reached multiple finals, even last season. And he has a 60% win record, but I think in the long term, it wasn't sustainable, I'd say. That's the kind of main thing I would talk about that. I think it wasn't sustainable, so I can understand why he was sacked, but the timing is really strange. Why would you back him, you know, get Aubameyang, who he's worked with, get all these players and back him with 300 million or 250 million, and then you sack him? It does seem like poor planning from the owners. Let's wait and see how it turns out, and luckily enough, Potter does play kind of a similar system with the fullbacks and the three at the back formation, but you know, it's different players. He might not like some of the players you've just brought in, so it's kind of a weird one. Aubameyang, for me, is not the same player, and that's why I was happy that Arsenal got rid of him last season. But I think he'll still get goals. If he gets the service, he will score goals, but he doesn't offer too much else apart from that. And if, you know, you kind of mark him out of a game, he's kind of ineffective, really. And that's even the same you could say during his prime. Maddison after Game Week 8, look, if he shows a bit of form and the same goes for Leicester, then yes, I'd be all over it. I think Maddison's a great choice. Yeah, I'd play for the full-time. Nabil, I haven't seen your question, mate. I haven't seen your question. I don't know what else to say. Perisic, Emerson, Real. Perisic, no doubt about that. Perisic getting a lot of rotation on the left side, or should I wait and see who plays in UCL? Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't finalise anything yet anyway. There's no need, and, you know, if someone goes up by 0.1 million, it is what it is. You know, don't just chase these price rises, so I would wait for the Champions League games first. Tony and Mitrovic priority if you have both. Also, if you're starting Mitrovic, do you start Andreas there as well? I don't have any problems with starting Andreas this week against Nottingham Forest. I don't see that as an issue. What's my priority? It'd still be Mitrovic for me. He's just been absolutely incredible this season, and I think he'll score more goals than Tony. I have Sterling in my team, just that I play Andreas this week. Oh, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Emerson or Nico Williams? Nico Williams, just because in terms of the structure, you can always bench him, and it gives you the ability to have more expensive players in other positions. Game Week 12 is the best time to wildcard, in my opinion. It could be. You know, I think Game Week 12 is a good time. Even now is. It just depends on your team and your circumstances. At 30 million, we'll probably bring in De Bruyne for a -4. That's what I'm looking to do with Salah, getting in De Bruyne and not overcomplicating it. Trippier or Cancelo? Still Cancelo long term, but for the next few game weeks, Trippier. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the shout out. Are you doing free hit this week? No chance. I don't want to use my free hit this week. If anything, I might wildcard. Otherwise, it's a -4 hit potentially, or 2 free transfers. I'm not going to be looking to free hit. Imagine Potter requests to buy everyone from Brighton in the winter. I mean, it could happen. I'll be honest, like, look, Potter, it does make sense, and I think he could do a really good job, but I'm not too sure about that appointment, to be fair. And I did say that about Tuchel, and he was obviously really successful anyway, but I'm just not too sure about this appointment in the long term. And whilst the owners will be keen to back him because it's their kind of pick and they want it to really work out, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets sacked in, let's say, maybe next year or the year after. Yes, it's a possibility that Wilson will play, and I'm not too keen on Isaac anyway, especially compared to Mitrovic and Tony. I have 2 free transfers: Trossard, Salah, Arnold, Sanchez. I also have in my 11 Ward, Trippier, Saliba, Cancelo, Nico Williams, Martinelli, Gibbs, White, Andres, Isaac, Haaland, Jesus. That looks good. I'd probably do Salah to De Bruyne, or Heung-min Son, I'd probably go for De Bruyne. And the other move, probably Sanchez to Pope. I'd probably look to do that. And I think that's fine. So in a similar position to me, in a way. I don't trust Pep Roulette, otherwise I'd have De Bruyne or Bernardo most weeks. Yeah, that's understandable, but De Bruyne for me will start the vast majority of games. But there will be the odd benching, and that will always be, a big frustration. Sanchez the Pope and Diaz to Foden for a -4, worth it for this week and long term. Sanchez the Pope is. Diaz to Foden, I'm not so sure. I would rather go for other midfielders like Zaha. Obviously, he's blanking this week, so I can understand why you're not going for it. But Foden isn't my favourite around that price. Go big and do what's needed to get Kane and Haaland. Look, it's not a bad idea, but I would rather have Mitrovic and Tony and Haaland and go for a premium midfielder instead. But that's nothing wrong with what you're saying. Hi, Dylan, is it worth Saliba to Trippier for a -4? Yes, if you are, let's say, if you have maybe one vacancy in your 11, then I think it is worth it. Yeah, the United game is called off, it's confirmed. The same goes for the Chelsea-Liverpool game and also Brighton versus Palace, which was already off anyway. Is Maddison a good pick? Yes, he is, but Leicester are awful, and I want to see more from them first before I go for someone like Maddison. Yes, Ivo. So if you don't use your wild card before, let's say, I think it's game week 17, then if you end up using your second wild card, that will just be your second one, and that's it. You can't roll it over, so you have to use it, basically. Obviously, sometimes you might not need to, but still, you'd rather use it than not, in my opinion. Emerson from West Ham or Nico Williams? Still Nico Williams for me, but Emerson's a nice one. I'm not too sure if he's nailed in the long term, but for the time being, he's probably a good option as well, and he's got great fixtures as well. James and Diaz or Cucurella and Cancelo? Probably James and Diaz, but I'm very reluctant about that one. Potter to a Division 3 team, Ostersund's to Europa League KO within 5 years. Yeah, I remember that. I went to that game, I think. The one where Ostersunds beat Arsenal. I went to that one. Yeah, look, he's a good manager, and I'm just a bit concerned about how he's going to do when the pressure's really on. You're managing a kind of big club compared to Ostersund, Swansea, and Brighton. Let's wait and see. Obviously, no disrespect to those clubs, but it's kind of a different ball game, and let's see how he adapts. Is Game Week 8 fixtures confirmed? Yes, it's confirmed. Obviously, things can happen. There could be policing issues, security issues about certain games, and then they postpone another one. Never say never, but this is what we're going to get most likely. Which two of these three would you start this week? Andreas, Bailey, Bowen? I would definitely start Bowen and probably Andreas. It's a tough one, though. It is a tough one. Isaac or Tony? I'd go for Tony, no doubt about that. Salah to Saint-Maximin and Archer to Kane for -4. It looks good. I'm not a big fan of Saint-Maximin, to be honest, Elliot, but I like the Kane move. Thank you, LFC. Thank you very much. Henderson as backup goalkeeper to Pope. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't spend that much money on your goalkeepers. Just have one good goalkeeper like Pope, and then you can cover him with Ward as your 4 million option on the bench, and that's it. Yeah, I think Potter is a good manager. Excellent, arguably, yes. Not convinced by Bowen. Best alternative? Best alternative Zaha in the long term, but as I said earlier, he is obviously blanking in game week 8, so you're going to be down to 10 men. But honestly, Zaha is the best kind of player long term. So what you could do instead is maybe go for Phil Foden. Obviously you're kind of putting a lot of eggs in the City basket. But to be fair, what you could do is play a back four. So you're going to go for Pope, Perisic, Nico Williams, Cancelo, Trippier, play 3 midfielders. It would be Martinelli, De Bruyne, and Andreas, and then the front 3. So honestly, I'd go for Zaha. And I'd go for something like this and just play Nico Williams this week. And I think this looks pretty good, to be fair. And I have 0.6 million remaining. A lot of you should be able to afford this as well. You could always go for another defender instead of Nico Williams. That's completely up to you. I think that looks fine. Swap Andreas for the Silva for a -4. He's not been starting. I mean, Andres Pereira is my preference, but would I do it for a -4? No. Bowley can just hire me if he's not backing any manager for long term. My salaries are much cheaper. Yeah, but no, they're just... Chelsea are just in a complete different beast when it comes to managers, and they have no patience even with some of the best managers of all time, like Ancelotti. And to be fair, that was probably a stupid decision. I have 11 playing. I just think Saliba's getting 2 points and Trippier plays Bournemouth. But if you have a good 11, I don't think you need to take the hit. But obviously, look, if you're backing Trippier to have a really big return, go for it, and it'll probably pay off. Should I do Tony to Jesus for a -4? No chance. I think Tony's the better pick long term. Yeah, Isaac has better fixtures than Tony, but Wilson's going to come back very soon, and Tony for me is a better asset, so not for me. Yeah, the pressure's massive at Chelsea. Thoughts on Paqueta? Look, I think Paqueta, I've seen him in Copa America before, the World Cup qualifiers, and he is pretty decent, but I'm not too sure, actually, FPL-wise. I want to see a bit more. I think Bowen's the main one I'd look at from West Ham, not Paqueta. Activate Wildcard now or wait until deadline? Just in case, I would wait a little bit longer. And I don't think there's many projected price rises for the time being. So if we take a look here at the price changes website, only Trippier is projected to go up today. Then we have a few that are close, like Cancelo, Martinelli, Pope, who I'm looking to get in as well. But really, if you can help it, just wait, because we have European games midweek, with the exception, I think, of Arsenal, PSV, and there could be a few others. But for the most part, we do have some Champions League and Europa League games. So don't make early transfers if you can help it. So we're going to go back to the wildcard squad. And yeah, we've already shown the kind of news. We talked about the 3 fixtures that are postponed. And obviously we have 7 games going ahead. Why are you holding on to Rashford when it's cancelled? Like I said, it's a wildcard squad and you can bench him. I think they're good long-term options, and that's why I have both of them. And also Zaha. It's completely up to you. You can go for someone else for this week. You know, that's fine. But if I were wildcarding, I'd go for something like this. Why double on Pope and Trippier? Because they have some great fixtures, and they can also, on top of the clean sheets, they can get bonus points. So I think it's pretty simple. Is De Bruyne away at Wolves a better option than Son at home to Leicester? I mean, De Bruyne did score a hat-trick last season against Wolves, if you remember. But Son, on paper against Leicester, does look better. But then you also have to factor in form, and Son has no form at all. Rashford fixtures aren't even good, no, but 5 of his 7 Premier League braces have come against the top 6 opponents, so Rashford could actually do better against the tougher teams compared to the easy ones. Welcome, Teza. Looking at Haaland, Kane, Mitrovic on wildcard, yeah, that looks fine. That looks pretty fine. What can I do with extra money in the bank for last midfield slot? Already have Zaha, Bowen, Andreas and Martinelli. I'm not sure what money you have to work with, to be fair, but maybe Sterling, if you could stretch him, looks pretty good. Do you back Arteta long term? As things stand, yes, I do. But whenever I say stuff like that, you know, things go tits up. So let's just wait and see. But, you know, Arteta's done a good job. And even last season, I mainly blame the players for the shortcomings at the end of the campaign. No goal scorer. So Arteta's done a good job. He deserves more credit, I think, from the media and also fans alike. Replacements for PG. I have 6 million to send and already have Andres in the Silva. I was thinking Soucek. For PG... I got to think. Oh, Pascal Gross. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of that. You know, I don't like the options around that price, other than Martinelli, Odegaard, Andreas. You know, the options you already mentioned. So, yeah, maybe Jensen could be one, but honestly, I'm not really feeling it. Bowen or Zaha? Zaha. If you can help it, I'd go for Zaha instead. But Bowen's also pretty good. -8 or free hit. Neither if you can, but if I had to pick, it'd be -8. I wouldn't want to use the free hit yet. Kulusevski doesn't start Champions League. Do you think it's worth a 1-week punt? It's still risky, to be honest, Suki, but yes, it is worth a 1-week punt. You know, if he starts against Leicester, he could wreak absolute havoc, of course. And then swap with Madison or Bowen for a long-term Game Week 9. Yeah, that's fair enough, but I'd just rather have those two from the get-go than just kind of chop and change those two. Yep, Solanke is a possible alternative. He has looked good when he has got the minutes, but I think Mitrovic is worth the extra millions. And yeah, Tony and Mitrovic, such consistency for their price. It's just kind of a bargain right now. Wildcard is rolling. Tempted to treble it on Newcastle, Pope, Trippier and Share. Nah, I wouldn't go for a triple up. I think a double up is fine, and I wouldn't go for Share. Trippier and Pope, and that's good enough. Should Martial be considered when he's fit? His injury record pissed me off too much, and with United, I think the goals could be shared, rather than Martial being the focal point necessarily. Obviously, he looked really good in pre-season, and, you know, I was considering the possibility of going for someone like him in some of my earlier drafts, but no, I probably wouldn't do that. Saint-Maximin, not feeling it. Rodrigo, honestly, I just don't like Saint-Maximin as a pick. Yeah, Saint-Maximin is playing Bournemouth. Forest are playing Fulham. Who is playing Game Week 8? Well, 7 games are going ahead. Liverpool versus Chelsea isn't going ahead, so that's 1 game. Both of those teams are blanking. United versus Leeds, and also Brighton versus Palace. Tony or Isaac on a wildcard? Tony. I drop Jesus for Isaac. Is that good or not? I prefer Jesus for this week, to be fair, but it's not a bad call, to be honest. It's pretty decent. I would rather go for Mitrovic and Tony, though, to be quite frank. Is Sterling a good pick? I think it's a decent one. But I would rather spend a few extra million to go for De Bruyne. People that say Rashford has bad fixtures, he's a pace merchant, he plays good against teams with a high defensive line. I do agree. And like I said, 5 of his 7 Premier League braces have come against top 6 opposition. Hi Dylan, great content as always. Who's the best Newcastle midfielder for Game Week 8? If he's fit, I think Saint-Maximin would be my favourite, to be honest. But I still don't like him that much, and I'm not a big fan of Newcastle midfielders. I prefer their forwards like Wilson when he's fit, and also the defenders and goalkeeper. Will Walker play next game? I'm not too sure, but Pep said that the injury isn't too serious, so he should be back fairly soon. I dropped Jesus. Yeah, just answer that, mate. Who do you like more, Ronaldo or Messi? Messi, all day long. Do you see Richarlison as Spurs future main man? I mean, potentially. Kane isn't going to be there forever, but, well, maybe he will. Yeah, I think if Kane leaves, then Richarlison will definitely be the main man, and then they will probably sign like a backup striker. But I still don't think he's worth 60 million, but he has done well so far, you know, and everyone was obviously giving Spurs a lot of slack for the move, including myself, and, you know, he's done well so far. Now I've got Mitrovic, Allen, and Isaac. Fair enough, but yeah, like I said, I would rather have the likes of Tony instead of Isaac. Should I keep Jesus while wildcarding? I wouldn't. I think it's a good time to get off Jesus, diverge from the template. It could backfire in Game Week 8, but with the fixtures coming up, it's a good move. Where are you at with your last few spaces in your Limitless team, Dylan? The same as before. I need to finalize stuff still. Currently, I have basically what I should in the best Limitless team. That is my team right now. I haven't even activated the Limitless yet, but I probably will overnight, and I will be looking to just iron out a few details. But really, it's what you saw in the best Limitless team. Nothing has changed. Do you think Son will be a good Salah replacement? Yes. It's just a big concern that he's only got 1 assist all season. Even in the Champions League, he's not really looked on it. Yeah, I think Leicester's a really good fixture. And I am considering going for Son as well, by the way, especially if I wildcard. What about Bailey? He's probably my second favourite option, around 4.7 million and below amongst midfielders, but Andreas is my preference. Richarlison to Kane, Salah to Son or KDB, and Trent to Trippier for a hit. Yeah, that looks all good to me, to be honest. I would go for KDB over Son, but Son has the better fixture right now, and the other moves look great. Kane or Son? Kane. Has to be Kane with the form this season. Will Isaac start? I believe so, but let's wait and see what happens with Wilson. He should be back. Are you not tempted to do Raya and another 4.5 million goalkeeper on the wildcard, or Raya and upgrade Nico to another 4.5 million defender? Raya? No. I mean, I just don't like Brentford defensively. I'd rather go for Pope, even Dean Henderson potentially, and Sanchez once he has games. Yeah, Raya's not really it for me. So no. When is Bruno Guimaraes returning? Probably by this week, Game Week 8 or 9. I'm not sure what the latest updates are, but he was supposed to be coming back around this time, the first few weeks of September. Yeah, like I said, Bailey's not a bad option. Almiron, no, I don't like him, honestly. What should I do if I have 5 players not playing Game Week 8? Well, 5 players not playing, so you've got 6 in the starting 11. Maybe I'd look to wildcard there. But if you've got 5 players not playing and you have 10 players overall, that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that, and you don't need to. Are there any players predicted to drop in price? I'm not too sure. We can check that now in the website. So, 1 second. Price changes. Bamford. I mean, yeah, no one here of interest. Maybe Bruno Guimaraes. Diego Jota was a good option in the last few seasons. But, yeah, that's really the only player. Bamford. So, yeah, that's the answer to your question. Let's now go back to this team, this kind of wildcard team I've got assembled. I'm going to put a quick poll out. Wildcard -4. So Pope, Perisic, and KDB, Son. All right. All right, so I'm putting the poll out here. How many points do you get from the first UCL Fantasy Day? It's all on my videos, 116 points, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow as well. But yeah, I break down all of the performance in team selection video, which I uploaded, I think, yesterday. No, today actually. I'm losing track. Yeah, I uploaded it today. And yeah, there's also a limitless team video and also a chip strategy for those of you that want to know when to play the chips. And I also provide an alternative strategy. Something that not many people have considered, I think. Any direct replacement for Salah? KDB. I think it's as simple as that. And another one is Son. How much time do you spend on reading football news update daily? It's a good question. I mean, it's just something I do naturally, so it just depends on each day. Sometimes I won't, be doing that much research, but, even just being on Twitter, talking to people, friends, talking to viewers, everything, I will be doing my research that way as well. Dallo to Zinchenko or stay to Dallo? Stick to Dallo, I think. I wouldn't go for Zinchenko. The fixtures are poor. Should I use free hit during this game week? No. I would wildcard or I would take hits, but I wouldn't free hit, honestly, if you can help it. Should I buy a Trippier right now or wait? I'd wait if you can, because you might have another issue, during the midweek games. Thank you, Splashy. Thank you very much. 7 players not playing worth a wildcard, so you'd have 8 players overall. Yeah, I think it is worth a wildcard, to be honest, especially if you're looking to change every single one of those. Should I have an Arsenal defender or another defender? I wouldn't look to bring in any Arsenal defender at this point, to be honest. Saliba's not too bad. He's a bit cheap, and same goes for White. But, yeah, otherwise, no, I just looked for another defence, like Newcastle. Rashford to Saint-Maximin, honestly, I wouldn't. You could do it for a 1-week punt and then reverse the transfer, but I think Rashford's better. I'm struggling with the defensive options. Trent, Cancelo, Perisic, Hakimi, James, Skriniar, Dumfries, Theo Hernandez, Mendy. Also, the last few midfield options. Yeah, look, there's not many standouts. That's the thing. If Liverpool were in form, Trent was getting the assists, Salah was getting the goals, it's very easy. But, we have a bit of a decision to make. And Liverpool are facing Ajax. The thing is, I don't really like the Inter Milan outfield players. And as for Theo Hernandez, yes, he's on penalties, but he's also only got 1 assist, I think, in his last few games. So he hasn't really been that impressive from an offensive point of view. So he's not really that much of a standout. And you also have to consider the balance between Tuesday and Wednesday games. Will Son start 100%? Not sure about 100%, but I think he will start. If I save the wild card, which game week is the best to do? Depends on your team, but maybe game week 10 or 12 looks pretty good. I'd say game week 12 looks really good for most people. Is Cher expected to start against Bournemouth? Yes, I believe so. Wildcard, Pope, Ward, James, Cancelo, Trippier, Emerson, Patterson, KDB, Bowen, Madison, Andreas, Martinelli, Haaland, Mitrovic, Isaac. Yeah, I like it, to be fair. Isaac and Martinelli to Zaha and Solanke. Fair enough. I personally would go for Tony over Isaac, and I've said this all along. And look, Zaha looks good. I like that kind of move, even if it's for Martinelli. Yeah, I like the idea, to be fair, Marco, but Isaac over Tony, not for me. But I can understand why you're doing it this week, because obviously Tony's facing Arsenal. Son is undoubtedly poor this season. I don't think anyone can deny it, to be fair. Let's say my team is worth 110 million if I sell my whole team. Do I get 100 million, or how much do I get? I mean, 110 million is very unlikely, even at the end of the season. But yes, you would have 110 million to spend. The way the prices work is that if you have a player, let's say, for example, Kevin De Bruyne, you bring him in at 12 million. When he goes up by 0.2 million, you personally gain 0.1 million in value. So when you go on to sell him, you will sell him for 12.1 million, not for the 12.2 million that he currently costs. So hopefully that does answer your question. So that's the way the prices work, and the reason why, it's not that simple, and you can't just build an insane team value and have 110 million off the bat. Isaac in for no, minor, no chance. I wouldn't even do it for free this week. I would not do it for a -4. It's up to you, not for me though. Odegaard or Zaha? Well, this week it's obviously Odegaard. Zaha's not going to play. Long term, I'd always go for Zaha. Perisic nailed? No, he's not nailed, but when he does play, he's going to get points. Would you want to see points for ball recoveries in FPL? Yes, definitely. Or defensive actions, even passing tiers, like in Sky Fantasy Football. I would definitely like to see that. Can you use free transfers and play wildcard at the same time? No, the wildcard will just kind of cancel it out. The same goes for hits. So if you take like a -16 hit, a wildcard will then eliminate that, so you won't lose 16 points. But no, you can't use free transfers as well. You will only have 1 free transfer after playing the wildcard, and the transfers you make is part of your wildcard. Thinking of doing Salah to KDB, Son, and Rashford to Bowen, Foden, Kulusevski. What do you think for -8? To be honest, I like the look of it, and I think you will benefit from it, to be fair. You're getting rid of 2 players that don't play at all, and you get some good captaincy options as well. So yeah, I think it's worth it, and I would go for KDB and probably Bowen. I have no idea when the When is the time for wildcard? Arsenal assets, not too sure about their form. I mean, to be fair, Arsenal have still been playing well, even when they lost to United, but yeah, I think now is the time to jump off the Arsenal assets and start going from 3 to possibly 1, if not none. Martinelli is the main guy I would maybe consider having. The rest is easily dispensable. Tony or Mitrovic? I prefer Mitrovic, to be honest. Any other Man City midfielder other than KDB? Probably Foden would be my pick. Why do you think so many great players are underperforming this season? It's a good question. Not sure why. Why now, of all seasons? But obviously we have Heung-min Son. We've got Ronaldo who can't even get into the team. So there are quite a lot. But then you also have to look at the opposite end of the spectrum. You've got the likes of Kane, who started the last season really poorly. He's now on fire. You've got Erling Haaland. You've got a lot of good options as well. You're always going to have great choices, but it's impossible for every single big hitter to hit the ground running. Even Salah, for example, that's the biggest shock, I think. We all expected him to be a fantastic option, but he hasn't been. I think Emerson is nailed now. Yeah, I think he is. He's playing well and keeping Doherty out of the team. Best midfielder for Gameweek 8? Best midfielder for Gameweek 8? I'd probably say Martinelli or Odegaard. I like them a lot. Even if Arsenal drop points, I could see them scoring 2 or 3 goals. Emerson or Nico Williams? Nico Williams for the structure. You can always bench him, but Emerson in isolation. If you want someone to start week in, week out, then I'd go for Emerson, of course. Opinion on Kane? I really fancy him over KDB. I understand that, to be fair. He's probably the 2nd or 3rd best captaincy option in general. This week, he might be the best, even over Haaland. He loves playing against Leicester, so I don't think that's a bad shout, mate. Is there price rises in UCL Fantasy? Yes, but they happen after the matchday 3 deadline, and they happen after each deadline happens from that point onwards. So let's say, for example, matchday 2, no price rises, whatever. Then we get to matchday 3, we do the deadline stream, we hit the deadline, the games start, then the prices change from that point onwards, and it happens straight after the games kick off, and it's based on previous performances, and it happens after each deadline after that. Should I swap Zaha for Bowen? If you have a good 11, then no, because I'd rather have Zaha in the long term. But if you have a kind of vacancy, so you've got 10 players or less starting, then I'd do it. And if that helps, I think that's a good choice. What do you think of Bowen for the next 4? I like him as an option. I had him in the best wildcard team earlier in this video. It's between him and Zaha. So I do like it, but Bowen still hasn't been that great so far this season. So I wouldn't say he's a cert on the wildcard. Keep Brighton defender or United? Probably United at this point, but the fixtures are arguably better for Brighton, actually. Which week is the best to use the limitless this time round? Like I said, probably matchday 2 or 5 is my favourite. In isolation, matchday 3 and 4 has better fixtures and a better balance, but yeah, it's kind of a different thing, to be honest. You might be looking to wildcard a matchday 3, which is what I'm looking to do potentially. So I'd say matchday 2 or 5. It's just completely up to you. When are you wildcarding? Potentially this week. Maybe it'll be later on. I haven't decided yet, to be honest. KDB or Kane or Son captain? I'd go for Kane. KDB or Son? I prefer KDB, to be honest, but it's really close. And for Game Week 8, I wouldn't be surprised if Son scores the most points of any player. What teams are not playing this week? Liverpool, Chelsea, United, Leeds, Brighton, Palace. So those 6 teams. The rest are fine. Yeah, like we answered before, there is the possibility of future cancellations, but I think in all likelihood, we're going to get 7 games and they're all going to go ahead. My front 3 is Haaland, Alvarez and Jesus. Who should I remove and replace? Definitely not Haaland. I would look to remove Jesus and Alvarez, and I would get Tony and Mitrovic. I think it's quite simple there. It's written price rises will happen after Game Week 2 deadline for UCL. Check today only for wildcard planning. Yeah, it's a bit strange because when I checked the rules section, it talked about matchday 3. It's kind of weird. We'll talk more about it tomorrow in the deadline stream, but yeah, it's something worth noting. The prices will start changing soon. Foden or Bernardo? Foden. Do the prices work the same as FPL? No, I don't think so, Marco. So when a player goes up by 0.1 million, you can sell them for that price as well. There's a lot of premiums this year, but those premium assets who are historically doing well just doesn't show up and made the ones who don't own Haaland look dumb. Yeah, I mean, look, who would have thought that pre-season? I remember people were slating me because I thought Haaland would actually get off to a better start than Harry Kane, for example. And I obviously paid for my decision to go for Kane in Game Week 1 because of the fixture. But yeah, look, things sometimes just don't go according to plan. I would try to wait until Thursday or something like that, yes, because there is the possibility that there might be further cancellations or something of that ilk could happen, and it makes your wildcard redundant. Does Emerson start? Yes. I mean, he's kind of nailed on at the moment. Maddison or Zaha? Right now, I'd say Zaha. But obviously, Zaha's blanking this week. Thinking of a -8, Sanchez to Pope, Jesus to Mitrovic, and Gross to God knows what midfielder. Well, that's the problem. And that's why you could just keep Gross, to be fair, and make the other transfers. Bo may not be good. By the way, Alex, getting rid of Jesus, even if it's from Mitrovic for -4, is a bit risky. That's what I will say. But in the long run, I think it's a good move. Raphael says, Bo may not be good now, but the fixtures and his need to go for the cup may get him to play very well now. Well, exactly, and that's why I did talk about him earlier, and he was in the wildcard team. It's between him and Zaha, and look, because Zaha does blank, you could just go for Bowen, and that's it. Hey Dylan, what's the site used for price changes? fplstatistics.co.uk. Sporting Lisbon is more likely to beat Spurs. Not sure about more likely, but I think they have a good chance. Sporting looked pretty impressive in match day 1 against Frankfurt. FPL in the mud, yeah, potentially. Mitrovic, Haaland, bench Archer, or Kane, Haaland, bench Archer? For me, Mitrovic, Haaland is my preference. But the thing is, though, you've only got 2 forwards, and I would try to have 3 forwards and go for Tony as well. And if you're going to look to do something like that, Lager, I would go for Mitrovic. Salah, Neto, Trent, and Greenwood to KDB, Andreas, Trippier, Mitrovic. Yeah, I'd do it. -8 does seem a bit excessive, but if you get to 11, that's fine. Isaac or Mitrovic? No doubts for me, Mitrovic. Is Dalot a good pick? I think he's a decent one. He's got good offensive capabilities, decent underlying numbers. I'm not wildcarding. You know, I could, and this could be why I wildcard too, but I haven't decided yet. I'm going to be thinking about it over the week. Honestly, I think this is the time for me to get Jesus out and get in Tony. Yeah, you could maybe wait another week for Gameweek 9, but honestly, I think Jesus' time is pretty much up soon. I have a full starting 11 without doing transfers. I feel like I'm really lucky. Yeah, I've only got 9, for example, and some people have even fewer, so I think that is a good position to be in. I haven't played Serie A Fantasy, so I can't comment, but I'm surprised that there is a game, and it's good to see. Bowen or Zaha long term? Like I said, I'd probably go for Zaha. Who do you think will score more in UCL Fantasy? Probably Mbappe because of the fixture, but could be either one of them. Yeah, any kind of like UCL Fantasy questions we'll leave for tomorrow, because obviously we have the deadline stream anyway, so we'll just focus on the FPL questions for now. Best midfield for 4.8 or less, Andres or Bailey? Definitely. Emerson or Nico Williams? If you want them to start like most weeks, then it's Emerson. Trippier or Perisic? I'd go for Trippier. Remove Salah, Archer, and Trent for Mitrovic, KDB, and Trippier for -4? Yes, I would do that. If Perisic starts in Champions League, do you think he'll be rotated this week? It's a possibility. That's the issue. So that's a good point you raise, and you could be right, and that's why it'll be really important. I think Perisic will start midweek, and that's why he does become a bit of a doubt against Leicester. So I don't think Spurs really are weakened that much when Sessegnon plays. He does a decent job. Who should I captain, Haaland or Isaac? I'd go for Haaland personally. Which two are Patterson, Williams, and Emerson West Ham on the wildcard? Williams and Emerson. Chelsea and Liverpool, who are even worse? Right now, probably Liverpool, but they're both in bad form, but I think they will kind of change things around, especially Graham Potter. I think he will get at least a short-term reaction out of them. We have the same front three like that attack, Dylan. Thank you, mate. I mean, for me, it's the best front three. Obviously, you've got Jesus, you've got Isaac, but I think these are the best three. Lungani, I do sometimes cover my predictions in the deadline stream, and we'll probably do that tomorrow as well. Yes, Brandon, just like you could with FPL, you can use the Limitless or the Wildcard, and you eliminate the hit. Yeah. -4 in a blank Gameweek is basically a -2. I mean, you can look at it that way, but also there's a lower ceiling in general, I think, with 6 teams blanking. So, yeah, when you're getting rid of a player that blanks for another, that's fair enough. And, it's not the worst thing in the world to take a -4. It's just when you take -8s, -12s, -16s, you're starting to border on excessive. Yeah, thank you, Fatal. Thank you very much. Ready for big viewership tomorrow? Yes, I'm already kind of losing my voice, maybe? I don't know. Hopefully by tomorrow I'm completely fine, and it shouldn't be an issue. And I think we can do an even better job than we did last time out. Do you think Elliott is affecting Trent and Salah's output? I think Elliott, that's a good question that you raised there. I think Elliott being in that position does actually put Trent at more risk defensively. I'm not too sure about the offensive kind of hindrance there, but he does occupy some similar positions to Trent, and it also has an impact on Salah as a result. So I think, yes, he does have an impact, but mainly defensively. When are you wildcarding? Like I said, I haven't decided yet. It could be now, it could be in a few weeks' time, but I think by Game Week 12 I will be wildcarding. It's just a matter of when. You sure about Tony over Isaac? I'm 100% sure, to be honest. Obviously, it's down to opinions. You can go for Isaac, he does a good job, and that's fair enough, but I think Tony's the better pick, to be honest. Archer to Mitrovic and Salah to Foden, or Archer to Kane and Salah to Saint-Maximin for a -4 with a wildcard in mind for Game Week 9. I will do the first set of transfers, Elliot, so I would get Foden and Mitrovic. Who do you think I should captain? Currently it's Haaland, but I'm thinking of Son or Mitrovic. I think Son could be a fantastic differential, and I like Mitrovic a lot against Forest, but I would captain Haaland, to be fair. Do you think Klopp will be under pressure if he loses the home game against Ajax? Yes, but... oh, sorry. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yes, but not as much as a Chelsea manager would, like Tuchel, for example. Be right back. I'm going to take a damn break, and that's what I was on about. My voice is definitely lost. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I think... the pressure will obviously crank up, but not enough for him to lose his job, basically. So be right back. I'm going to show you the predicted points. Let me know what you think of it as well down in the live chat, and we'll be back very, very soon. Okay, we are back. Damn it. So, as you can see, and just kind of ignore the United, Liverpool, Chelsea assets and all of that. So Son is actually the highest in terms of predicted points in Game Week 8, despite his awful season. Harry Kane, Haaland, De Bruyne making up the top 4, alongside Bowen in 5th place, who is facing Everton. And you've got a few other kind of like maybe outside picks like Johnson and Isaac. And to be fair, the next 3 fixtures for Newcastle look incredible, and I can understand why some of you are going for Isaac. There's no doubt about it. But I still like Tony more in the long term. What you could do, although I'm not a big fan of kind of booking in transfers, is go for Isaac over Tony and then make the reverse switch later on. So that is the predicted points. And also bear in mind the fixture ticker. So Fulham are top of that as well. Then you've got a few teams at the bottom of the list like Arsenal. I mean, yeah, that's why it's a really good time to get rid of these assets. Then you look at Brighton as well, who blank in Game Week 8 anyway. United, Liverpool also in the bottom 4, and they blank as well. So it's not looking too good for their assets as well. Chelsea as well is quite surprising, but in the long term, if you look until Game Week 20, for example, that would be much different, and they'll be ranking much higher. So let's go back to the wildcard team that you can see here on screen. So yeah, a lot of you, well, I won't say a lot of you, it's kind of a close call here. So 55% of you have said to take the -4 and go for Pope, Perisic and KDB or Son. So that's quite interesting instead of wildcarding, but it's very, very close. Rashford or Bowen? I'd say Bowen right now. Thank you, Lungani, thank you very much. Could Fulham get into Europe this year? I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest. I don't think they will, but they can, of course. Trent nowhere near Joao standard as a player. I think it's kind of just recency bias to say stuff like that. The same goes for Salah, and then people kind of just lazily say, oh, he's struggling because Mane's not there anymore. I think there's more to it. I don't think Trent is nowhere near Joao Cancelo as a player, but do I think Joao Cancelo is a better player? Yes, just not nowhere near. I think that's a bit too harsh, I think. Yeah, I'm all good anyway. It's just talking a lot. I'm kind of saving my voice. Most of the videos I recorded recently were recorded a few days ago, for example. And it gives me more time to kind of recover. Tomorrow I should be fine. Hopefully I am, because I'm going to need it. And tomorrow's going to be a pretty busy stream, I think. I have 2 free transfers. If I use free hit in Game Week 8, will I have 2 free transfers in Game Week 9? No, you're going to have 1 free transfer in Game Week 9. The same goes for if you wildcard, Marco. So this is my wildcard currently for Game Week 8 onwards. Pope, Saliba, Nico Williams, Cancelo, Martinelli, Bailey, KDB, Andreas, Kane, Mitrovic, Haaland. Looks solid to me, Lager, to be honest. Yeah, I do like it. Saliba is someone I'm a bit unsure about with the fixtures in mind from Game Week 9 to 12, but the rest looks fantastic, honestly. Looks really good. Yeah, I think that would just be my concern about Saliba, but you do have James Emerson on the bench as well. And you might have maybe some kind of like benching headaches, for example, but you've got the options on the bench if needed. Is Emerson locked? He is pretty nailed on, so I'd be surprised if he was on the bench. Yeah. 2 free transfers not enough when 5 of my starting players are due to blank, and that's why you could just wildcard, but I wouldn't be looking to use the free hit. Is a -4 worth it to replace a blank midfielder? Yes, especially if you're bringing in a player of real quality, like a De Bruyne, a Jeroboam, someone like that. I could have Raya, Cancelo, Williams, Saliba, KDB, Martinelli, Pereira, Haaland, Mitrovic, Jesus for a -4. Should I do it or build a wildcard draft? I think there's nothing wrong with either option. I would only wildcard, Jonah, if you are also looking to make another number of changes. If it's just those and you're just preventing a -4, no, I wouldn't wildcard right now. I had to take a -8 hit due to not enough people playing. That's fair enough. You know, everyone's team situation is different, and a lot of us are severely impacted by what's happened. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Son being at the top. I think that I do disagree with him being top. I think it should be Haaland, arguably. But he has a good record against Leicester, and Leicester are probably the worst team in the league right now. So, yeah, I think he should be up there, just not that high. And Kane is probably my preference. He has an incredible record against the Foxes. I'm taking Isaac over Tony since I feel like Newcastle will create more for Isaac than Tony. Brentford will for Tony. That's fair enough. My big concern with Isaac is Wilson coming back. You know, will they play a front two, or will Isaac make way, or maybe share minutes? It'll be interesting to see. I would have gone for Son against Leicester, but then I'm looking against another transfer later to go for KDB. I made that mistake in Game 1 by going Kane, then wasting a transfer to switch to Haaland. I did the exact same thing, and that's another thing I have at the back of my mind, and that's why I'd rather go for KDB. The downside for going for him is that you have 2 options from the same team in City, Haaland and KDB, and you're most likely going to go for Haaland most weeks. So, yeah, I do agree with you there. Andreas, Colback, Nico, Emerson, who should I start? I'd start Emerson Real, and I'd probably start Andreas Pereira. Took a -4 to play Perisic, or don't take a hit and play Patterson. The thing is, I would wait until we see what happens in the Champions League. If Perisic gets like 80 plus minutes, then I'd be very concerned about him playing against Leicester. And as a result, I would just play Patterson. So wait and see first. 19.3 million for a striker and midfield on a wildcard. Already have Haaland. Who do I go for? I would probably recommend something like Sterling and Mitrovic or Tony. Something like that would look pretty good. Or Kevin De Bruyne and Mitrovic. I think, could you afford that? I think so. What's KDB's price? 12.2? Yeah, 12.2. Mitrovic is 6. No, I think he's more than that now, isn't he? 6.9. Yes, so... Yeah, I think that would be my answer. De Bruyne and Mitrovic. Salah and Gross to Son and Bailey, or Sanchez and Gross to Pope and Bailey? I would rather... I think Son has the highest ceiling than Pope, so I'd go for Son. Son and Isaac, or Kane and Saint-Maximin? I'd go for Kane and Saint-Maximin, but it's really close. Zaha or Bowen for now? Zaha. Emerson or Perisic? Perisic, but the thing is he's less nailed. I'm not going to deny that. On Bournemouth, West and Leicester? Right now, I'd say no. You know, Leicester are bottom of the league. They haven't won a single game so far. Bournemouth actually have a decent record against non-top 6 opposition. So I'd say it's Leicester. But obviously on paper, that's not the case. I have 10 players. Do I wildcard or take a hit or do nothing? I mean, it's hard to say because I don't know which players, you know, you have that are missing out. And I don't know how many changes you'd want to make on a wildcard. If you want to make 7+ changes, then I'd wildcard right now. But otherwise, you know, you can just maybe just make transfers, take a hit, maybe 1 hit, and then wildcard in a few weeks' time. Do you think Leicester will get relegated? No, I don't think they will. I think they'll sack the manager if things continue, and they'll get a managerial bounce, so no. But it is a possibility. Who do I think is going to get relegated? I'd say Bournemouth. The rest is quite tough, you know. I'd actually put the likes of Everton, you know, in big danger to go down. So right now, Bournemouth, Everton do spring to mind. And then it's kind of hard to kind of discern the third team. But if Leicester continue with Brendan Rodgers somehow, and they continue to struggle, then yes, you know, they'd probably be my bottom 3 as well. What do you think about Emerson of West Ham? I think he's one of the better 4 million defenders. There's also Nico Williams, of course, but I am concerned about him in the long term being nailed. And of course, I could be wrong. A West Ham fan could correct me in the chat, but yeah, that would be my concern. KDB long term is a more solid pick than Son. I agree. But of course, you know, they're both great options when they are fully out. 3 AM in Malaysia now. Got to get some sleep. See you tomorrow, mate. Thank you, Wei saying it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Why is Kane not under consideration? Look, you make a good point. I am considering him. It's just Tony Mitrovic offers such great value, and I like this team structure. The way I see it, I'd rather have Tony or Mitrovic, or even possibly Isaac potentially, compared to the options around their price in the midfield and below. -4 hit and play the silver, otherwise -8. Thoughts? Who would you get in for the -8 though? Asif. But yeah, I think if you're bringing in a good player on a -8, I would do that. If I build that team, I have to hold Gross. Is that a problem for me on the bench, or does he have to go? Honestly, you could hold him on the bench. You know, he's still a decent option. I'm just concerned about Brighton options in general, with obviously the manager departing. Royale or Bowen for this game week only? Bowen has the highest ceiling. I'd go for him, but it's completely up to you. Play Ward or take a -4 for Pope? I'd probably take a -4 for Pope, and that's one of the few times I'd say something like that. Who are you captaining and vice captaining? In this team, it would be Haaland captain and Mitrovic vice. To be fair, though, it could also be De Bruyne, but just in case of postponements and stuff like that, I would vice captain a player from a different team, and I would go for Mitrovic. So that's just the way I see it. Maddison or Bowen? Right now, I'd say Bowen. Ward-Prowse a good option. Not my favourite, to be honest. I'd rather go somewhere else. What's your prediction for the top 6 this year on the bottom 3? Some great questions in the chat. Sorry. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm going to think about it whilst I have a little bit of a water break. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. And yeah, let's try to set a new target. So we've got 270 people watching. Let's try to get to 200 likes. I think we can definitely do that. And tomorrow, be sure to tune in for the deadline stream for UCL Fantasy. So yeah, quick water break, and I'm going to be answering that question. So, top 6, Man City champions, no doubt about that. I think Spurs will finish second. Really early days. I think if Liverpool, kind of get their act together, I think they will be in the top 3 or 4. I don't want to say Arsenal third, but I think Arsenal finish 3rd or 4th as things stand. But obviously, things can change really quickly, especially with injuries. Thomas Partey, who could be coming back against Brentford, he can't be relied upon, and Arsenal have a poor record without him. So, Man City first, Spurs second. I'll go for Arsenal third. And in 4th place, I think I'm going to go for Chelsea right now. Obviously, look, I can revise this later on in the season. I think I'd go for Liverpool 5th and then United 6th, but obviously I could be wrong about that. Bottom 3, I think Bournemouth will be last. And also I'm assuming that Leicester will change managers or start to sort things out. And then Everton, and I'm not sure about the 3rd team. That's the thing. It's kind of really open right now. You know what? I'm going to say Nottingham Forest. I think they will also go down, but I could be wrong. Obviously, they made a lot of good signings. Let's see how they gel. So that's kind of just an early prediction. I could be wrong, and it's completely different to what I said, a few weeks ago. I'm taking a -8 hit advisable. Depending on which players you bring in and out, honestly, otherwise it's kind of difficult for me to judge. But yes, I think, yeah, I mean, if you're getting rid of players that are blanking and you're getting in some really good ones like De Bruyne, I think it's fine. -8 to get Pope for Sanchez whilst having Ward and get Maddison and Bowen, so I have 11 players. Yeah, I think that's fine, Raphael. I'd do that. I'm looking to do something similar, but for a -4 instead. Cresswell's back in training already. Emerson will not be 100% nailed, even though I think he should start over Cresswell. Well, there you have it. That is the big problem. I don't think he's nailed compared to someone like Nico Williams, for example. But for the time being, he's decent, of course. What about Sessegnon if Perisic is playing Champions League? I mean, yeah, look, if he starts, I think Sessegnon will get points. Not as much as Perisic, but, that's not a bad shout at all. I'd just rather go for someone else, to be honest. Perisic is the only Spurs, wing back that I would really consider. Or maybe not, because Emerson is good. Maybe left wing back, I should say. Do you think Nico Williams is a rotation risk with Serge Aurier coming to Nottingham? True, that is true. That is a possibility, but I think for the time being, he's earned enough credit in the bank to be the starter for now. At least I want Emerson to start over Cresswell, but maybe Moyes thinks differently. Yeah. Yeah, I just realised now, because a lot of people were asking about Emerson versus Nico Williams, and I was assuming the Brazilian right wing back for Spurs. And that's why I said if you want someone to start most weeks, I'd go for Emerson. But yeah, it'd be Nico Williams, basically. Just to clarify for those of you that I gave that answer to. Do you think Nico Williams... Sorry, I just said that. Dylan, would you wildcard if you had 5 players out this week? Well, I've got 6 players out this week, and I am still considering something else, to be honest. I'm still considering a -4 or just 2 free transfers, to be fair. Yeah, quickest water break ever. Yeah, try not to stop the stream for too long, basically. Currently, first City, Arsenal, Tottenham battle for second, third. Yeah, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, top 4 battle. That's the way I see it, but I think Tottenham will finish above Arsenal, unfortunately. And I think Arsenal finish 3rd or 4th. I don't see them finishing 2nd. Of course they can, but let's wait and see. Choose 2 midfielders, exclude KDB to 18.8 million combined. In that case, it's a tough one. It is a tough one, to be fair. I'd maybe say Sterling. And then you've got 8.8 million. I'd probably go for someone like Bowen or Zaha. That would be my kind of picks there, Johnny. Thank you, Soldier Boy. I appreciate it. Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. And likewise. City, Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool. Well, Chelsea 3rd. That's interesting. And Man United above Liverpool. I mean, you could be right, to be fair. What is Harry Maguire's ownership? I mean, if it's more than 2%, I'd be surprised, to be fair. Some people probably have him for the banter, if you know what I mean. 0.4% ownership, yeah, there you go. There you go, 0.4%. Yeah. Your team is great. Why do you need a -4? This is not my team. If this was my team, I just wouldn't do anything, to be honest. I'd be very happy with it. This is my team right now. As you can see, I've got 2 players missing in my starting 11. Everyone on my bench is blanking as well. So what I am considering is either wildcarding to the team you saw just now, or taking a -4, getting Pope in for Sanchez so I don't play Ward. And I could also bring in a defender like Perisic, although that is really risky, and De Bruyne in the midfield. But I'm still open-minded. I could go for Heung-min Son instead of De Bruyne. I could also go for maybe another defender instead of Perisic. Maybe Emerson Royal is the safer pick. So I am considering alternatives. Will Sir Maximan start? Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he will, but he should be back fairly soon. Thank you, Raphael. I appreciate it. Let's say Perisic plays 80+ minutes in Champions League. Would you take Sessegnon, Emerson, or a different defender? Possibly Emerson, because I'd still be concerned about Sessegnon versus Perisic, so it'd be Emerson. My current defense for this week is Cancelo, Saliba, Trippier, and Mings. Should I keep it like this or put Nico in for Wings? I think, yeah, Cancelo, Saliba, and Trippier have to start. And if we look at the Aston Villa fixture, Southampton's not a bad game, to be fair. I'd probably start Mings, but not expecting too much, honestly. Good start with Isaac on wildcard and move to Tony next game week? Yeah, for sure. I think the fixture against Bournemouth makes that a viable choice, but I have also done decisions like that in the past, and it has backfired, such as going for Kane over Haaland in Game Week 1, despite me being a serious advocate for Haaland all season, really, all pre-season. See you tomorrow then on the UCL Fantasy stream. Exactly. Thank you very much. I'll see you there, Lungani. Maybe answered already. Share or Saliba? Probably Share at this point, but I'd rather cover Newcastle with Pope or Trippier rather than going for Share. However, if it's a case between those two over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I think Share is the easy pick. Zinchenko, good option for Game Week 8. Not a bad choice, but I think Arsenal will concede. If you have 1 free transfer before a wild card, will you have 2 next week? So once you play a wild card, you're going to have 1 transfer regardless of what happens. So yeah, whether basically you're just going to have 1 free transfer the week after playing a wild card, and it doesn't matter if you had 1 free transfer or 2 before that. So yeah, makes no impact. You're going to have 1. Better defender for 4.8 million max. I would actually consider. It's kind of difficult, to be fair. Don't have many options actually. Kind of looking down the list, and it's kind of grim reading. I would maybe, yeah, I'd go for one of those 2. I think maybe Dallo, but then obviously he's blanking this week, so now is not the time to go for him. The same goes for Brighton defenders. Palace defenders as well. Like Anderson could be decent, obviously after when they start having some games. Botman's not a bad shout at 4.4, but yeah, honestly, I'd probably just look at one of those 2, mate. Share or Saliba. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. What do you think about Diego Costa? Yeah, exactly. You know, Wolves have scored 2 goals this season, and despite how good Diego Costa's been in the past, I just don't think I'd do that. And getting Nico Williams and Mitrovic is not the play, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. There's obviously going to be a clash there. Very unlikely that both of them will return in the same game. Rashford or Diaz? I'd go for Rashford right now. Is Son a good pick? I think so, despite obviously how poor he's been so far. I think he will actually get some returns against Leicester. If Perisic starts tomorrow, he'll be benched for Leicester. Yeah, I mean, that's, I could see that happening. And that's why I'm considering the possibility of going for Emerson instead. And by the way, for the wildcard team, obviously, kind of down to popular opinion, a lot of you have made this change, and I think it is viable, especially with the Gameweek 8 fixture in mind. Isaac could be the better pick here. But in the long term, I think Tony is my favourite out of the two. But yeah, this looks pretty good. You can also go for Bowen instead of Wilfred Zaha. And then, yeah, this looks pretty fine, actually. But I would love to have Zaha on a wildcard, I can't lie. But yeah, I think right now, if I were to lean one way, instead of playing the wildcard, I think I will be taking a -4 hit, maybe going for Emerson Real instead of Perisic, and then going for De Bruyne and Nick Pope in goal. Yeah, Luka Dean from 1 week punt doesn't look too bad, but I think Southampton will score in that game. But obviously the fixture doesn't look too good. Wolves have conceded the least amount of goals this season. Yes, they have. But in terms of an offensive point of view, I don't like their assets. I don't like Neto, I don't like Podence, Diego Costa. I don't like those options right now. Obviously, Diego Costa could become a serious good option in the weeks to come, but right now, so wait and see. They have some poor fixtures coming up, so I don't think now is the time to go for them. Jose Sar's a really good goalkeeper to have in the long term anyway, as he was last season. Should we gamble on Maddison from Gameweek 9 onwards? Leicester's juicy fixtures, they do. They really do. And I think Maddison will continue to do well. But yeah, I think it's just a wait and see really with them. Let's see how they do against Spurs. Hopefully they can produce a good performance, but not really expecting anything. Wilson to Maximan this week. If he starts, I think he's a good choice, but I don't like him in general. I think there are much better options around 7 to 8 million, and even around the same price. I'd rather go for Martinelli and Odegaard. Sell one, Maddison or Son? Well, for this week, I'd rather sell Maddison. I think Son will outscore him. Bench Maddison or Bailey? I think I'd still bench Bailey. Good midfielder for Gameweek 8 for maximum 7.2 million. Martinelli or Odegaard for me. Also, Spurs attackers such as Son, Kulusevski, Richarlison and Kane, good options. Of course they are. And once Son gets clicking, I think he's a fantastic choice. But Kane is the standout right now. Kulusevski is a big concern with rotation. Richarlison's done well when he has started, and even when he gets these cameos off the bench. And like I said, I think Son will do well. Who would you replace for Zaha and Gross? For Zaha, Martinelli or Odegaard? I'm probably the same for Gross, to be fair, but I wouldn't want to double up on Arsenal midfield. So I would say Martinelli, if not Odegaard, and the other one would be... It's a bit tough, I can't lie. Yeah, it's tough. Probably say Maximan, but it's obviously a bit of a risk there. Arsenal fixtures off the Gameweek 22 are insane. Yeah, but right now they're insane for the wrong reasons from Gameweek 9 to 12, unfortunately. Podence got 2 double-digit returns this season, by the way. Neto has been a shambles, though. Still, I don't think that justifies going for someone like Podence, honestly. Yes, he's been better than Neto, but still, I just don't like these Wolves assets offensively. Taking a -4. Yeah, I would replace Salah and Trent, to be honest. It's just the easiest to kind of downgrade. You can go to De Bruyne and whichever defender you really want. I'm not sure. So looking at your defense, you've already got Trippier and Cancelo. Yeah, so you can go for Emerson Real or Perisic, depending on what we see tomorrow with Spurs, for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then you can get De Bruyne for Salah. So I would get rid of those two for -4. Captaining Mitrovic, Isaac or Haaland? Haaland for me. Would you rather have Isaac and De Bruyne or Maximan and Kane? Isaac and De Bruyne, I would rather go for. I support Arsenal. Bowen or Maddison? Bowen right now, but Maddison has been the better option all season, of course. And if he does well against Spurs, I'd be very tempted to go for him instead, despite, Bowen also having some good fixtures and also being on penalties. Mitrovic or Isaac? Has to be Mitrovic still. Would you rather have Isaac? Yeah, just answer that, Fraser. I would rather go for Isaac and De Bruyne. Choose Tony or Isaac long term. Long term is Tony. So that is the way I would go about it. That's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything we need to with most of the key questions. I know a lot of you are thinking of hits, if not playing the wildcard or the free hit. Replace Son for Salah. It's not a bad choice, mate. I think Son will come good, but De Bruyne is my preference. Does it make sense to sit Oh, okay. I just lost the question there. I think I've got a bit of a. Okay, there you go. This chat's sorting itself. Who would you bench with this team? Yeah, let me know. I will be wrapping up fairly soon. Sterling, Cucurella, and Taylor to Mitrovic, Emerson, and Bone from -12. I think a -12 is way too much. I just honestly wildcard at that point if you can. I think a -12 is way too much. Trent and James out for Nico and Gabriel for this week, and then get Trent for James back in when my transfers roll back. I mean, this is the thing though. You obviously have one transfer the week after, so you'd have to take a hit to then get those players back in. So yeah, look, it doesn't look too bad, but I'm not a big fan of Nico and Gabriel necessarily this week. I'm not expecting huge returns. Zaha, Rashford, Zaha. Thoughts on Tony and Solanke? I think Tony's still one of the best options in the game around his price. Solanke is one to keep an eye on, probably an outsider for a slot in our forward positions, but I'd rather go for Mitrovic for a little bit more. Does it make sense to wait after Wednesday to replace Salah to De Bruyne? I think it makes sense because De Bruyne could get injured, something could happen, you never know. Do you think Martinelli's a must-have? Not necessarily. Arsenal have some poor fixtures from Game Week 9 onwards. You don't need to go for Martinelli, but you've got all these other options around a similar price. They're blanking this week, for example, or in the case of Brighton, they're losing their manager as well. So I'm not really that confident of what they're going to do in the future. So I think he is still the best option around his price and below. What teams to load up on if free hitting? If you were free hitting this week, I would load up on Spurs. I would load up on Man City and maybe Arsenal. Maybe go for 2 or 3, but mainly Spurs and City, I think. Isaac or Mitrovic only this game week, and Newcastle's another one, by the way, of course. Mitrovic still. I'd go for Mitrovic this week, Mario. So that kind of covers it. If you have any more questions, let me know down in the comment section below, and I hope to see you for the UCL Fantasy Deadline stream tomorrow. That should be a big one as well. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. We hit 14,000 subscribers yesterday at, I think, overnight, so thank you very much to everyone, and let's try to get this stream to as many likes as possible. We're looking at 200 if possible, but 150 is fine at this stage. Obviously, we're on 138 right now, and I appreciate everyone who's already done so. And check the links in the description below, including the Discord server, the FPL League, and all that good stuff. It'll be a pleasure to have you on all of that as well. And I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 8. We finally have some games coming up again. 7 matches going ahead with 3 postponements. That's 6 teams blanking. And I'll be talking about what I'm going to do in the upcoming team selection video. And there will also be some other videos, such as the best wildcard team, which I imagine is going to be very popular this week. So take care. Wish you all the very best of luck. I hope you enjoy the football as always. And I'll see you next time.